It's day 2 of the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. Several world leaders and business executives are expected to address the summit today. There have been calls for constructive dialogue in a complex global landscape. SABC News economics reporter Gloria Sefako-Musi is in Davos for us and joins us live with the very latest. A very good afternoon to you, Glorious. Just talk us through day 2 of the annual meeting and the expected, at least, leaders that will be addressing the summit today.
Good afternoon, Mfundo. Indeed, day 2 of the World Economic Forum in Davos. There have been discussions since this morning looking at different issues, especially the landscape that you just mentioned, a very challenging global landscape where we are seeing geopolitical fragmentation. We've seen the World Economic Forum releasing a report saying the highest risk that leaders are concerned about this year, over the next 2 years, is actually geo-economic confrontation, given what happened between the United States and Venezuela. There's a risk that these disruptions could actually cause supply chain disruptions, which may affect the world over, like we've seen with the war in Ukraine and Russia, where we've seen inflation spike. Speaking about inflation, we are joined here by the Reserve Bank Governor, Lesitja Kganyago, to speak to us more about these issues. I would like to speak to him firstly about the issue of the central bank governors globally writing a letter defending what's been happening in the United States as well with the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, in what many have read as an attack on the independence of central banks. Central bank governors defending the independence of central banks because they are seeing this as a tool to try and control, I guess, stabilize finances in countries for the benefit of citizens. The governor now joins us. Thank you so much, Governor, for making time for us. Just take us through what led to this letter, the importance of central banks' independence, and whether you also see this as, I mean, South Africa, the Reserve Bank has been through this. Is it still an issue for the Reserve Bank?
In a democracy, there will always be a contestation about institutions. In South Africa, we are fortunate in the sense that our independence as a central bank is enshrined in the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The issue of central bank independence had been at the center of the execution of monetary policy globally. It is an accepted norm that if you want price stability, you must have an independent central bank. But over the past few years, there had been populist rhetoric around the role of central banks and about the independence of the central bank. At the G20 finance ministers meeting in Durban earlier in 2025, there were 3 references to the importance of central bank independence in the declaration of ministers and governors. That was carried through into the Johannesburg declaration, the importance of central bank independence. So in central banks writing that letter, it was reminding the world that there is actually a global commitment to central bank independence. But for us in South Africa, it was also just to reiterate that the issue of central bank independence was one of the key constitutional principles that underpinned the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa.
So given the geo-economic confrontation that we are seeing, there is a risk there that there may be impact on inflation. Given the South Africa's currency volatility to exchange rates, how is the Reserve Bank planning to cushion South Africans against runaway inflation?
Well, at the moment, it's too early to tell. We do not have the data that tells us exactly what the impact of all this fragmentation would be on inflation. But what we have actually seen had been that you are now giving an impact on the global supply chain. And if we go back to the experience of the great inflation of 2022, we would remember that what happened was that as the economy was taking off, supply couldn't respond because of those supply constraints. We are seeing once again an adverse impact on the global supply chain, and that would affect supply. In as for how is South Africa positioned to respond to this, for us it is not just about inflation; it's also about economic activity, and our response in South Africa is three-pronged. Firstly, is that the central bank must focus on its price stability mandate, and importantly, that we pursue the new inflation target with vigor and make sure that inflation expectations are embedded. And we are able to do that because we do have the monetary policy space. So monetary policy remains focused on dealing with inflation. Secondly, is that these global disruptions and the impact that they would have could lead to the rise in borrowing costs globally, including borrowing costs for South Africa as a country. And that calls for us to rebuild our buffers so that when that shock comes, the South Africa is actually cushioned to be able to respond to that. And you have seen that then the second component of that response is actually fiscal consolidation. And we have seen the Treasury embarking on a process of fiscal consolidation, and now it has got a 3-year track record of showing that they can do that. And the third response is structural reform. What we have seen in South Africa, those global supply chains being disrupted, we must make sure that domestically our own logistics framework is actually functioning, sorting out the ports and rail, sorting out the electricity grid. That lays the basis for the uplift in economic growth.
Governor, thank you very much for your time. We have run out of time. That is the Reserve Bank Governor, Lesetja Kganyago, joining us there from the World Economic Forum in Davos, taking us through the challenges of the independence of central banks around the world and also in South Africa. With that, it's back to you, Mfundo.
All right, thank you very much there to my colleague Gloria Sefako-Musi out at the World Economic Forum in conversation there with Governor Lesetja Kganyago, specifically around the independence of central banks.